Hi everyone, my name is Wyatt McCabe. I'll be speaking for the affirmative of euthanasia. I'm pleased to be given this great opportunity. I'm greatly interested in the topic of euthanasia and supporting my claims in regards to the topic. Before getting into things, I would like to take the time to define a couple terms that will be used in today's debate. Two terms are euthanasia and autonomy. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines euthanasia as the act or practice of killing someone who is very sick or injured in order to prevent any more suffering. Autonomy is defined as the state of existing or acting separately from others. In America, euthanasia is illegal in every state. I think that this is ridiculous. I mean, if a person is suffering, they have a right to a quick, peaceful death. Also, this affects no one other than the patients themselves, so I see nothing wrong with this practice. Doctors also have to be fine with the operation of euthanasia. If they do not want to perform the action, another doctor can. Due to this, the welfare of the doctor's states and minds will not be at risk. With these words in mind, I stand resolved that euthanasia should be made a legal, viable medical operation under the condition that the patient gives full consent for the operation. My value criterion for this debate is that everyone has a right to death just as much as they do to life, because it is the best tool with which to measure if my values being upheld in this debate. I have three contentions. Each of these three contentions uphold my value. My first contention is that humans have the right to not suffer. As mentioned by famous Czech Republic author Milan Kundera, it is very ironic that the one advantage that dogs have over people is the right to a merciful death. If a human is suffering so much that they do not have to desire to live any longer, the government should not keep them from doing so. Also, due to the religious views of some, death will bring them into the afterlife where they will live forever without pain. Even for the non-religious, they look to death as a peaceful place where they can escape the pain. If death is what makes them happy, they have the right to the death. The Declaration of Independence even states that American citizens have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The right to the pursuit of happiness, if that affects no one other than the person themselves, such as euthanasia, it should be fine to do so. My second contention is that death is a matter that is private. It affects no one other than the individual, and the government has no right to interfere. Also, euthanasia does not harm anyone. Even the individual who goes through euthanasia goes through a painless thing. Some may argue that euthanasia is a violation of God's will for that person to live. However, the First Amendment of the United States Constitution prohibits any law respecting a religious organization to be in effect. Lastly, my third contention is that euthanasia can be controlled and it will not be granted to any individual without their full consent. However, it will only be used in the most serious of occasions. To ensure that euthanasia is given solely to patients who have requested it and not accidentally given to other patients, a two-factor authentication would have to be involved. Instead of only one source having access to the drugs to perform euthanasia, two or more would have to be there to ensure the safety of other patients. With strict rules, there is no reason as to why euthanasia should not be a legal practice in the United States of America. In conclusion, having supported my value of autonomy, I urge an affirmation of the resolution that euthanasia should be made a legal, viable medical operation under the condition that the patient gets full consent for the performance of the operation. Thank you. Now I stand for questioning.
My name is Grant Briers, and I'll be speaking against euthanasia in an instance of extreme medical discomfort. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of this important issue. With a number of horrendous, often chronic, and incurable diseases in the world, an individual's right to death, in certain circumstances, has come into question. There are a variety of reasons why euthanasia should remain illegal within the United States. Proponents of legalization of euthanasia argue that individuals have the right to die when in severe pain, but allowing suicide in the case of illness is a slippery slope to embark upon. It breaks the doctor's Hippocratic Code, leads to commercial interest in patient death through reducing medical costs and resulting in beneficiaries gaining benefits from the victim's death. Living wills cannot guarantee the proper person makes a decision. There are religious issues, the outgroup of society could fall victim, and the government involvement in end-of-life decisions is wrong. I intend to prove that euthanasia is not only wrong on a moral level, but also an ineffective means of dealing with human suffering that should never be allowed to become legal within the United States. There are a plethora of reasons that euthanasia should not be legalized within the United States. To legalize the authorized killing of another human being, individual, due to illness is the first step of embarking upon a host of other problems down the road, such as abusive euthanasia policies by insurance companies, insurance beneficiary abuse, religious concerns, ineffective living wills, victimization of society's lower classes, and the government becoming involved in such a personal matter as life and death. Proponents argue that an individual has a right to die because the Constitution guarantees the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But the Supreme Court ruled in 1997 in Washington v. Glucksberg and Vacco v. Quill that there is no right to die guaranteed to United States citizens. The Christian and Jewish faith is deeply against mercy killing, and with a country that has such a high population of Christian and Jewish, it would be very difficult to gain the support of these groups regarding euthanasia. Pope John Paul II issued a proclamation against it on May 5, 1980. Virtually every medical organization within the United States views euthanasia as unethical. Doctors take a Hippocratic oath that basically states that they're going to do everything in their power to ensure that a medical patient receives the best care and its life is drawn out as long as possible. They want to do everything they can to save an individual's life. And euthanasia, in its entire concept, contradicts that oath that they swear in and take. If a patient were incapacitated, it would be difficult even with a living will to determine the proper individual to make a life or death decision for the victim. Additionally, insurance companies would be able to benefit from these policies. It would be cheaper for an insurance company to kind of facilitate euthanasia being enacted legally so that they would not have to continue to provide expensive medical care for a patient. Additionally, life insurance policies, if a family member were to decide that a person that was being questioned whether or not they should be euthanized were to be euthanized, then they could benefit from that victim being euthanized through life insurance policies. The option of euthanasia would undermine the quality of palliative care. People would cease to do everything in their power to take care of an individual when they know that the option of euthanasia is always on the horizon. The unfair emotional and physical burdens that would be placed on both the doctor and decision maker, the ability of insurance companies, beneficiaries to exploit such policies, and the religious conflictions that all result from euthanasia coalesce to clearly indicate that it is a policy that is far from merciful and should not be permitted to be legal. Thank you. Now I stand for questioning.
At the start of your debate, you said that you brought up medical discomfort in regard to euthanasia. Were you saying that euthanasia causes medical discomfort, or what did you mean by that?
What I was saying was that euthanasia would be used in instances where a patient was in severe medical discomfort.
Okay. You brought up that euthanasia is immoral. On what grounds do you say that euthanasia is an immoral practice?
Euthanasia, basically, it puts somebody in the God role that we shouldn't decide when somebody lives or dies. There's a natural course of life, and it needs to run its course itself.
You bring up the God role. I mean, there is a separation of church and state. We cannot, a law cannot be made in preference of a religious organization. So, I mean, that plays no factor in it. The First Amendment of the Constitution says that.
I'm saying religious views have a role in people's belief on this issue. Not that there are plenty of other things that have nothing to do that are more secular of why euthanasia should not be legal.
Such as?
Insurance companies would stand to benefit from euthanasia being legal by reducing the amount of medical care they have to provide, and euthanasia would provide a much simpler, quicker option.
But euthanasia would be a very rare thing. It would only be used in the utmost of serious occasions.
How would you define severe medical discomfort, though? Anyone could say they were in severe medical discomfort, and if they have that right to make that decision, then somebody who, say, is having cancer and doesn't think they can make it just decides, oh, I'm going to end it.
Euthanasia would have to, before it would be used, it would have to be brought up before a medical board to pass before we go through. Not anyone could just do it. It would have to be thoroughly examined by the doctor.
Has that been written into proposed statutes, or is that just your personal opinion?
That has been written not personally. That has been written into the doctor's code of what euthanasia has done in other countries. I don't know if that's what they do in America, but they have done that in other countries. That is all. I wanted to clarify a few things from our discussion. Euthanasia, one of the main reasons that it was made illegal is the fact of religious belief. Religious belief cannot sway one way or the other any law that is made, because the First Amendment of the Constitution says that no law can be made in favor of or supporting a certain religious organization. Also, he brought up the Hippocratic Oath, and the doctors are sworn in with the Hippocratic Oath saying that they would help the patient to live their life as long as they could. But if as well as the law would be changed. In addition to that, the Hippocratic Oath would also have to be altered if euthanasia was implemented in America. The Hippocratic Oath would change, and doctors would then therefore be allowed to perform euthanasia. I also wanted to ask the fact, how is it moral to let someone suffer? But I mean, but still it's immoral to grant them the right not to. People have the right not to suffer from extreme medical conditions. Also, he brought up the fact of conflict that is brought up if euthanasia was made illegal. There are other things, such as there were gay marriage, abortion, and other things that were now made legal in America that have brought up much conflict. And euthanasia would be no different. The Supreme Court would have the final say. It would not be opinionated. It would be the Supreme Court who would rule whether it was constitutional or unconstitutional for euthanasia. Also, euthanasia is 100% a 100% comfortable medical operation. The person would never know if they had been through euthanasia. Most of the time they're incapacitated. And as Grant brought up, how would we rule whether someone would go through a will or find out if they're, like, who would grant the right for the person to go through euthanasia? No one will be able to grant the right to use euthanasia other than the person themselves. If they are incapacitated, euthanasia will not be able to perform.
There are a variety of reasons why euthanasia cannot be legal in the United States. I'd like to point out again that the entire concept of euthanasia breaks the doctor's Hippocratic Oath. The affirmative has argued that the Hippocratic Oath could be altered, but you're not just altering one part, one small subsection of the Hippocratic. You're not altering the entire premise of the oath itself, that a doctor will do everything in their power with all their medical knowledge to ensure a patient lives longer and to continue to provide care for that patient so that the patient can succeed. Additionally, euthanasia leads to commercial interest in patient death. Insurance companies would stand to benefit from euthanasia policies because euthanizing an individual would be cheaper than providing long-term medical care in instances such as cancer or other long-term chronic diseases. Also, life insurance policies, the beneficiaries of such policies, if a child or a family member would benefit from a father or mother or relative dying, then that would make euthanasia an easier option for them because they would know the life insurance settlement they would receive because of the policy. Living wills can't guarantee that the proper person, if an individual is incapacitated, will be designated to make the decision for euthanasia. Also, there are religious issues. Now, religious issues are not the problem regarding whether or not it should be legal. What I'm saying is that religion plays a big role in our society, and religion is behind some reasons why individuals are personally opposed to it. The outgroup society could easily fall victim to euthanasia policies. It would be much easier for lower class people who can't receive medical care to simply be euthanized in instances of severe medical pain, as to no longer have to provide medical care that they cannot afford and the doctors won't be compensated for. The government should not be involved in end-of-life decisions. The government is involved in virtually every aspect of our lives already, but the decision between life and death is not an issue where the government needs to bring its hand into. I'd like to point out that the affirmative dropped its argument that an individual has the right to die. Yes, the Constitution guarantees the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but that does not include the right to death, because the Supreme Court ruled in 1997 in Washington v. Glucksberg and Backo v. Quill that individuals do not have the right to death. Virtually every medical organization views euthanasia as an unethical practice. Once again, that resorts back to that Hippocratic Oath that doctors are supposed to do everything in their power to ensure a medical patient lives the longest life possible. If the patient were incapacitated, the proper person couldn't be designated. And it places an unfair emotional burden on the doctor as well. A doctor who is in their very nature are designed to try to save lives would be ending a life because of suffering rather than trying to continue to provide care. All these things, the insurance companies, the way the insurance companies stand to benefit, the Hippocratic Oath, the religious issues that stand behind many individuals' personal opposition to the issue, all these things coalesce to show that it is a policy that is far from merciful and should not be permitted to be legal within the United States. Thank you, judges, for your time and effort in this debate.
It didn't start. Okay, it started.
Before drawing a conclusion in this debate, I would like to go over a few more things. Grant brought up that I dropped the fact that people have the right to die. I did not drop that fact. I never said that Congress ruled, or the Supreme Court ruled that we have the right to die. The fact that we have the right to die was an opinion. But I do believe that still Congress and constitutionally that we do have the right to die. It is just a matter of bringing it back up into the Supreme Court again. This was in 1997 when it was ruled that we did not have the right to die. Things have changed, and we just need to bring this back up and see. Also, he has acted like the Hippocratic Oath cannot be broken. The Hippocratic Oath is not some kind of golden rule. It can be altered and changed. Also, personal opposition was not involved in this, as in like the religious groups and things like that. Personal opposition does not matter. This is a matter of constitutionality, of whether euthanasia is constitutional or is in fact not constitutional. And we need to bring this back up into Congress so we can rule whether it is constitutional or not. That is all I have to say, and I'd like to thank the audience and judges for this great opportunity to present it, and thank you for your time.